I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is the Intentional Thriver. Welcome back to the Intentional Thriver, the podcast where we ask the question, am I thriving or am I just surviving?
That is the question.
Today we have two very special guests all the way from Melbourne, Florida, Cherise and Daniel. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
And we're doing great.
Oh, it's so good to see you guys. And this is a very special podcast for me because it was one of the ones that from the beginning I knew I wanted to do with Cherise and Daniel. We have a very special relationship with them. Daniel was my intern. Were you in high school or were you early college?
I think I was fresh out of high school.
Nice.
Yeah.
A wee babe.
You were a babe. Before you guys knew each other, I knew you. Sounds like God. No, but Daniel, you were such a great intern to have. You were so much fun. Your hair went on for miles, right?
Oh
you
my
had
gosh.
the most hair of any intern I had.
Which is apparently still a quality you still have, Daniel. The ability to grow
But it
Yeah.
went straight up. I mean, it
huge
was
amounts of hair.
long.
The reason I had like such long hair was kind of just to be like kind of like a rebel, I guess, because I was like in ROTC and like Sea Cadets like throughout high
Oh.
school, so I always had to have a haircut. I always had to have like buzz cut and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
But then when I finally graduated and I was done, I was like, finally, I can like see what it's like to
And
have long hair.
and for those who don't know Daniel, the word
hilarious.
rebel
It's
and
not
Daniel,
what
I
I
wouldn't
would've
necessarily
ever-
associate in the same
Maybe
sentence.
rebel's not the right word.
That was the
Right.
most
And even the
rebellious.
way your hair was not rebellish at all. So adorable. Oh my word.
Goodness. Wow, we are so off track
I know.
right now.
And then Cherise, we've known you for a while too, through church, through small group, and then I've had the privilege of working with you side by side. You were my boss for a while. Now we're side by side. It's been amazing. You onboarded me, all that stuff. So that was pretty sweet.
Which is perfect for today's
I know
topic.
today's topic. So let's start out by just going over background. Like, tell us a little.
What is today's topic,
Oh,
Stephanie?
we didn't talk about today's.
I'd
topic.
like to know.
Us
Is
too.
that-
We like
Is that what we
No,
normally
we're talking about like work-life balance.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting concept.
Ugh.
Because I think that concept has like evolved and changed over the years.
Yeah.
And it's not as clearly defined as maybe it was back in
Well,
our
yeah.
parents' day.
I mean, we
or-
both work virtually a lot of the time. You guys
Mhm.
do a hybrid, right? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you're right. Those lines get blurred. I mean, COVID. Whew.
Yeah, oh man,
That-
that changed the game.
Yeah. When did we not work? I don't know. So Justin and I are both working on recovering workaholics. And you
I mean, we use the term recovering very loosely.
we're not doing a great job.
Very loosely.
You're like on step one.
Yes.
admission. Yeah.
Yeah.
We fight
We're
over
still working on acceptance. Like, we're in
Yeah.
the first.
We have literally had 2 fights this week about who gets to work more. Like who gets
I
to
know,
work during
bad.
like the night.
So this is
or-
our way of getting like free therapy
Yes.
right now
Oh,
and talking
So
through
you're helping
this.
us. So we're really excited about that. And why don't we hear a little bit about you guys? Daniel,
Yes.
tell us about who Daniel is.
Mm.
So yeah, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. We moved to Florida in 2009. And let's see, what else? I played trumpet during high school.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
during that time, I also played trumpet at our church. But for my career, I'm a software engineer. And yeah, like that's my career. That's my passion. I really love like programming, software development. It's just like I could do it all day, but I will obviously talk about how I limit myself
Nice.
from
Yeah.
doing it all.
Yes.
That's very cool. I love
Yeah,
that's
that's
your
awesome.
passion.
That's
Awesome. Cherise.
Hello. Well, I grew up in the great state of Wisconsin and
Mm.
moved down to Florida after high school. I went to UCF and got a bachelor's in communication. While I was doing that, I was helping people find their soulmates by working at a shoe store. So
I did not know this.
Oh my
yes.
word.
Yeah, I did 5 years, hard time in the shoe business. So
Wow.
actually, and that was a pretty taxing time in terms of being out of balance for work-life balance. So I started part-time, and then went full-time, and then became a store manager.
And would you say you found New Balance?
I did not find New Balance.
Oh,
I
darn.
was looking for New Balance.
It's a type of shoe.
Few puns.
Oh, I
Oh.
know.
It was really
I
good.
know. It was-
Cherise's
my
humor is on point.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Okay, keep going. Say-
You're just
But,
too
yeah.
sophisticated for us commoners. You're
Yeah.
too
So
smart.
while I was there, I was also in school. I was very involved with church in a leadership role, and dealing with some health stuff at that time as well. From there, I moved into a couple of different HR positions, and then eventually ended up in like a project management operations type of role, which I'm very passionate about. I'm grateful to work in. Landed with a wonderful company there.
Yes.
Met Daniel about 5 years ago. I don't know. We've been married a few years. We got a baby now.
Yay.
So
Rest
We've
in
been
peace.
together for 5 years.
yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
The time, where does it go?
Right?
Crazy good, like a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
See, now that joke I do get. I know my Pop-Tarts. So this idea of work-life balance. I mean, again, I think this concept means different things to different people. In some ways, it seems like a really simple idea concept, but what does that mean to you guys? What is that concept of work-life balance, that separation, that connection? What does that mean?
I guess to put in simple terms for me, it would mean just like basically means just like making sure I actually work from like 9 to 5, and that anything from work after 5 just stays at work, and like my time at home is like I'm present at home with my family. And I of course there are situations, well, yeah, we have to work after 5 or things like that, but just like kind of just being intentional, being routinely about that like at 5 o'clock, like I need to leave work and just be home. So I know it's a kind of a simple term, but like I think just being like intentional and just kind of practicing that can just really set your mindset for being intentional about your work-life balance.
Sure.
Yeah, I think work-life balance sounds simpler than it is.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like two things, right? There's work and there's life. Just balance those. But there's a lot that goes on in life, right? When that life part of your day in your section, you have to do your chores. You have to hopefully spend quality time with your family. You have to exercise, hopefully eat right, cook meals, go grocery shopping. Try to do something meaningful, maybe volunteer. There are so many different aspects. So for me, it's really holistic. It's designing your life around your values and the things that are important to you. And I definitely think it's fluid. I mean, it can change in different seasons.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the reasons for working. I mean, at its very core level, like obviously we work to make money so that we can eat and live and have shelter and, support our families, all of those things. But I think the types of jobs that people do, the motive for that can vary tremendously across the board. Like, and maybe, I don't know, has this changed generationally? Like, I feel like there were components of maybe our parents or grandparents who, maybe had one job and that's the one they stuck with for their entire lives. And it's not that they really loved that job or anything like that, but they did it to put food on the table and things like, you know what I mean? Or there is more of like, this is my dream job. This is my passion. This is what I want to do. I'm going to pursue this thing. And it's like, I can't believe I'm being paid money to do this thing. It's like, I don't know. Is there anything wrong with either of those motives? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of processing and thinking through that myself, like the different levels of motives for work is either of those wrong? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that question. And I actually think about, like, from a biblical perspective, if you're, for those listeners familiar with the Bible, there are
Yes,
these
yes.
two characters called Adam and Eve. So if you've just started reading the
Heard of
Bible or picked
them.
it up
Yes,
once,
heard
you
of them.
might have heard of them.
Yeah.
But even before sin entered into the world, there was work. So we have to know at some point that work isn't the enemy. Work
Yeah.
isn't something that was brought on as a curse. Of course, there are going to be hard things in work. It might not always be enjoyable. And there's also like privilege, right? So some people have the opportunity to pursue that passion, and some people never get that in a lifetime because of the hand they were dealt and their circumstances. Um, for me, I do think that it is important on some level to be in a position or with a company that you resonate with, that you feel um, the work you're doing is important, or that you have coworkers that are supporting you, or that you feel like you're able to serve them. um, there isn't anything wrong with just going to work to get a paycheck, but I think it can be a fallacy that you can just spend 8 hours of your day somewhere and hate it and not get anything out of it, and that not affect your mental health and your life outside of work, because we spend so much time there. It's going to have an effect on us. Because we spend so much time there, I'm of the belief that as much as it's in your control, you should try to pursue something that is going to be fulfilling in some way.
That's
It
good.
doesn't have to be your dream, your passion, and all of those things. But even when I was working in said shoe store and I didn't like it and I was dreading going there every day, I tried to find something good. Like, I like fashion, I like design, I like helping, people select something that is going to go with their personal style and help them express themselves. And I do like helping people. So even trying to find those things, or I'm able to encourage my coworker and those kind of relationships to get through those hard jobs when you're in those seasons or in those circumstances where, they're not ideal positions that you're in.
Sure. Good.
Yeah, like God did tell Adam and Eve to work. So like it is kind of like it is in a way a command from God to like, hey, you need to work. And but yeah, like also what was mentioned, like what you're saying, that not everyone has the opportunity to have a job like that's like their passion. So like I'm fortunate enough to have a job where like I could really just program all day. Like I really could. I could just like spend my whole day in the computer and just developing. And like that never tires me. And like it's funny because this might be a side tangent, by the way, but Cherise was saying that something she likes to ask like her like employees is like, what's something that tires you and what's something that like motivates you like all the time. So like I think kind of the same thing can be for like one's career. Like it can be like just something you love, you could just do all day. And it could be something that, man, like this job is tough, but like I can do it, but I will be tired by like the end of the week. But like I still need to maintain like this job for my family. It's like the only thing like available for me. Or someone could be in an extreme situation where the job is, completely horrible or just toxic or even,
Yeah.
And I think in those situations, I think someone just, I want to say, oh, just try to get a better job. But sometimes people just can't do that. They're just stuck there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really fortunate and blessed to have just the career I have, the job I have. I really couldn't imagine anything else, doing anything else, because it would be tough. Like I don't know how I could do it. So I'm really blessed and thankful to God that He directed my life in this way. So
yeah. So let's talk about, and I don't know if you experienced this at the shoe place, Cherise, but what were some like warning signs, or maybe you did, Daniel, at your internship, that was like, this ain't for me.
This lady that I was working with.
Big
red flag.
Yeah.
Right. Either like, this isn't for me, or my work-life balance is out of whack. Obviously, even like you said, you love your job. You could do it all day, every day. But that still doesn't make it healthy to do it all day, every day, especially like child, especially in marriage. But really, never. We need community. We need friends, stuff like that. So what are some warning signs of having an unhealthy work-life balance that you have either experienced or seen?
After my wonderful internship, wonderful
Gosh
boss.
darn it.
The next job I was at, actually, this job is where I developed that thing I mentioned of like, I'm gonna just always work 9 to 5. That's gonna be like what I do, because at this job it was quite the opposite. And granted, at the time, which I think we'll get into as well, like I was still in college, so I would have a class at 6 p.m. So it was like I would work until 5, and the school was down the street. So I was like, I'll just stay after 5 because I'm gonna go to class at 6. So that wasn't every day, but that's like an example of me. That's kind of where it began, of me just staying after 5. And then that just morphed into me staying until 7, and then like me staying until like 10 p.m. And then
Mhm.
finally I stayed a full 24 hours at the office one time.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
and it was it was pretty rough, and that was not a good experience for me, because not only was I like still in college and all this, it just kind of put something in my mind of like, I hope this is not how like my career field is gonna be.
Yeah.
So yeah, but answering your question about what is like warning signs, I
Mhm.
think one of them is definitely if it's kind of part of the culture of the company to
Mm.
they kind of encourage or tell you, or even they have amenities for you to stay after work. For example, and I went to visit some companies in San Francisco, and they will have beer and video games and stuff after work hours, and it was just to encourage people to stay there. So
Yeah.
I think one of the warning signs are those kind of things. If they say, "Oh, we'll do your laundry for you," or 5 o'clock beer night or something like, I think that might be a warning sign that the company encourage or wants people to stay after 5, because they want obviously more work gets done.
Yeah.
So I think that's like warning number 1,
Yeah,
just a culture
it's really
of
good. It's really
I think
good.
that's really interesting too, because it's like touted as a perk, right?
Yeah.
Those things are,
Sure,
yes, and it
yeah.
sounds interesting the first time you hear it, right? But once you say it like that, it's like, oh, actually,
Yes.
yeah. But for me, I experienced some like internal triggers of like an unhealthy work-life balance. One, like number one for me, was anxiety, like just a feeling of helplessness, a feeling of not being able to set boundaries. There's also sometimes like a sense of pride or like your identity being really closely tied to your work. I think those are all symptoms. And not having any flexibility. For me, also, like not having a Sabbath, like not having a day, regardless of like your day job work, even if you work 5 or 6 days a week, and the other day you're doing chores all day, you're not really getting a Sabbath. Like, I think it's important to take a proper day to rest and to, refuel into yourself. And I know we're talking more on people who probably have struggle more with the work side of things, but there's also some people who have like too much life and not
Yeah.
enough
No, that's
work.
right.
So that's something to think about as well. And I think on that side, some of the triggers are like a sense of purposelessness, not feeling like anything you're doing is really mattering. And also just like a desire for entertainment, always looking to, what can I be watching? What can I be doing? Where can I be shopping? Those kind of things for people who struggle in the other direction.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit, because we've kind of alluded to this a couple times now. And I mean, obviously, you guys now have a beautiful little baby boy now,
Oh,
coming up on
6
6 months.
months.
Yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
super exciting. Like having a child, or if someone, steps into a new position at work or a new job or things like that. Do you feel like there's seasons of when that work-life balance changes or adapts, or is it always like it always needs to be this, always set that boundary? And again, I know this is tough because it's different for different people and circumstances, and like there's so many factors that go into it. But I don't know, would you say there are seasons of different levels of work-life balance and that it changes? And morphs over time.
Like I mentioned in my previous job, since I was in college, like, you know, I haven't met Cherise yet. And so like there was nothing for me to go home to really. So I would say, well, I'm just in college. I might as well stay after. I'm working part-time. I might as well just stay and make more money or whatever. And like I mentioned before, that is when that, you know, habit or behavior of staying late and working late kind of began, you know, rolling into my life, because I was in a situation where I didn't have to really go home.
Yeah.
I could just stay and make more money. Sure. So, and of course, everyone's situation is different. So yeah, I was in college. I could work more. Sure, why not? So I would say yes. I mean, obviously when I met Cherise, and at that time I had a full-time job, and by that time I had already like set myself mentally to work just 9 to 5.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean in my company now, some people still work after 5 or things like that, and but I have almost never ever like stayed at, you know, past 5 just to work, unless a situation was dire. So yeah, long story short, yes, I think everyone's at a different phase in life, that if, hey, I'm in college, you know, I might as well, you know, keep working. Like that's something that one can do, but I mean, one has to also be careful, because you don't want that to become like, you know, your habit or something that, or something that just, you know, then you get into a relationship and then you get into a kid. You have it wired in your brain to, hey, I always work late because I want to make more money or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. I think like anything in life, it's adaptable, it ebbs and flows. I remember one of my first office jobs. It was a whole environment of young people. I was young and single, so my coworkers were also my friends. And like you guys were saying, sometimes those lines would get a little blurry. And I think that's totally fine and kind of normal when you're young, and you know your life does revolve around work a little bit more, because you know those are sometimes some of the close friendships that you make, and there's a lot of benefits that can come with that. You can grow your career. There are definitely seasons if you are maybe switching careers and you're really trying to make a good impression, or you're trying to kind of front load the cost. You know, I'm going to work really hard now so that I can, you know, set myself up better in the future. I think those are great examples of ways to times it might be appropriate for a person to work a little more. And then on the flip side, you know, life changes. You know, sometimes people have to care for a loved one, or when we had our baby, we decided, you know, ran the numbers and everything, and decided that I would go part-time, which I'm so grateful to be able to do. It's obviously a sacrifice, right? We have to make some adjustments, but it's really about centering our life around our values. And it's so important for me to be able to be there with my son, and, you know, not feel like I'm rushing every single day and trying to squeeze so much into one day. So that I think has really helped with the rhythm and the flow of our family. And it's just been super life-giving for us.
Yeah,
for sure. So as we talked about different seasons of life, and especially in a marriage season, and then kids, you know, not ostracized. Okay, let me just get. Okay. So we were talking about different seasons of life, and especially in marriage, and then kids make that even a bigger deal.
Yep.
But let's talk about communication around work-life balance.
Yes.
How important is it for you guys to communicate? And it sounds like, Daniel, you had already made some of these decisions even before meeting Cherise, but you've changed jobs since being together. You've changed not careers, but, you know, changed seasons. How are ways that you guys have communicated with each other in the work-life balance area?
Just obviously like what our marriage counselor told us, just communication is just, you know, telling like, hey, I'm running late. Like, you know, I got caught up with something at work, so I'll be home a little late today. Or even if, for example, I think it was like Friday or Thursday, there was like, you know, a very critical bug in our product that they were like, well, we could do it later, but, you know, it'd be great if you could do it now. And I knew it would only take like 10, 20 minutes.
Okay.
So, but before I said yes, I asked Cherise, hey, is it okay if I can, do this real quick? And had she said no, I would have told them no. I would have been like, sorry, I can't do this right now. So, so yeah, and it's just communication. And even if I have to like have in my mind of, oh, I might have to stay I'd work late. So I let Cherise know. It's like, hey, I'm going to stay a little late today because I need to catch up. So it's just letting, for me, the communication aspect is of just letting my spouse or letting Cherise know that, hey, I'm going to work this late and I'll be, home late. I will be busy. Like, so sorry. But if you, don't want me to, I can be available.
Wow.
And I'm a project manager, and 90% of project management is
communication. Yes.
And that's true in relationships too. Probably 100% of successful relationships have good communication. But yeah, I think communication is huge in a relationship. That's probably one of the main things that people struggle with. But when it comes to work-life balance, a lot of times people do have a conflict avoidance kind of style. And so they feel like, oh, I'm just going to be a few more minutes, and those minutes take longer and longer, and can even become an hour, and then they get home, and that can cause a fight. So it's, I think it's just more important to communicate and be upfront, because people aren't usually upset about, you having to work a little late. People are mostly understanding, right? It's a critical bug. Your customer needs you. Somebody is on medical leave. Like, there's reasons that you need to work late. But if you can communicate and get on the same page, you can adjust your expectations of, oh, okay, I just need to know that I'm going to have to spend an extra 30 minutes, before I get him to, take care of the baby, or before I can, make dinner or something like that. So just setting those expectations really provides, people, your spouse especially, something that they can count on and, commit to. And it's just about being reliable for each other.
Yeah. This is probably a terrible question, but I'm very curious about your guys' perspective on this. And caveat this question, like, obviously this depends on the company. There's so many factors that go into this. But do you feel like if you are good at that, if you are good at setting boundaries, if you are good at saying, I'm going to work from this time to this time, yes, there's like little exceptions here and there, but that is not the norm. Do you feel like that compromises like your opportunity to advance in a company? You know what I mean? Like, again, that's probably a stupid, weird question, but I feel like since we're in like, I don't know, maybe the term I hear is grind culture. It's like, you always got to be doing, and you got to be competitive, and you got to stay ahead, and you got to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Does having a good life-work balance in that way like hurt you in the long run within a career? I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if it does, then that's another red flag.
Yeah.
That's just part of, because if I think that's probably even worse, because then that has seeped into like the administrative side, I guess, of the company, or like the HR side, because if you're being valued of like, oh, well, we're not giving you this promotion because you didn't work 60 hours. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's insane. And and again, it just goes back to like the culture of the company.
Yep. I remember onboarding, and Cherise was doing a meeting, and the other lady onboarding with me came from government, 20 years in the military. And she looked Cherise dead in the face and said, okay, you're telling me to clock in, 8 to 5 is our hours with lunch. What does that mean? What are you just saying that, but you're expecting? The way she asked it was so like straightforward. I'm like, like, how could you ask that? And Cherise, you just handled it so well, and you were just like, no, we really mean like 8 to 5. And and I know this lady works more than that, because she's amazing and she loves it, but like, still, you are so genuine about like, we actually track your hours to make sure you're not going too far over it. And we think that's just as important as under hours, and so so talk about that, Cherise, from your experience. I mean, obviously the company we work for now definitely values it, but have you had experiences where that is the underlying expectation?
I don't know necessarily if it's about the quantity of hours as much as the quality of work. Again, it always depends on your company, right? But a solid company is going to value your production more than the hours on the clock.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this might be a hot take, but I sometimes feel like people who work longer hours are less efficient or not using their time wisely in circumstances, not when you're in like
Sure.
a video
Yeah.
production industry, right?
Yeah.
It's that's what you have
Yeah.
to do.
Right.
But sometimes those people who are always on at 8 p.m. are, not really managing the 9 to 5 that well, or maybe not looking for efficient ways to do things. I mean, personally, I don't have concerns with it. I step back. I'm part-time now because I know my value. I know what I can produce. I know that I'm efficient, and I know I bring value to a company and a business. And if someone doesn't value that because it doesn't fit into like a traditional work week or certain number of hours, then it's probably not a good fit for me anyway.
Yeah. I want everything done now. Like, I want everything done. I want it to be working. I want it to be, and I mean, that served me well, high, fast-paced agency, things like that.
Yeah.
But that's not always the best way to be working. It's definitely a good way to burn yourself out. It's definitely a good way to frustrate some, team members that can't get it all done at once. So how did you learn that concept of like how to manage your day? How, I know you keep saying you're a project manager, but like I've project managed too for 8 years and I still don't know how to like be realistic. And the way I was realistic before was working 10, 12-hour days, so, with 50 clients, and so how did you learn how to be realistic with your personal ability? Because you're fast, you can get a lot done, but like, how did you learn that for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's difficult too because I think a lot of it comes from like time and experience and knowing your environment and your culture. So, for example, if the business wants something done, right? We have a priority. Now I have a better sense of when it can actually be done because I think, yeah, I could probably do that in a week, but then it would have to go into review from our executive team who their calendars are like blocked always, right? They're always in meetings, and then one's traveling, you can never get them. So probably won't be done until the end of this quarter. And just looking at history, right? Oh, we say we're gonna do 50 things this year, and then at the end of the year we got 8 things done, right? So I think it's just a constant gauge of kind of tracking where things are going over time and being realistic. And then just always knowing that in any project, in your day and your tasks and everything, they always take longer than you expect. So just add a buffer to everything because
true. It's good.
I mean, it's like finances too, right? There should always be some kind of bucket because every single month something's gonna happen that you weren't expecting.
Daniel's haircuts.
Weekly.
That is why I want to throw it out again. They're $50 a pop.
What?
It's a lot of hair.
Wow.
That's what the tip.
Still, that is not cheap.
So when we fail in work-life balance, because I mean, again, balance, even just the term balance, like the concept of balance is that there's nothing that's ever perfectly balanced. Balance is all about adjustment. It's I start to lean one way. And so I, kind of compensate the other way and vice versa. And the whole point of trying to like maintain balance is that you don't lean so heavily one way that the correction has to be really extreme for the other way. It's trying to make like these little micro movements. But when we do fail in the area of work-life balance and we, fall off to one side or the other, what are some steps that you recommend that we can take, that a person can take to get back on track, to try to get that alignment where it needs to be? Especially if maybe they've set an expectation or identity of themselves to being one way or the other. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I just say keep practicing and celebrate the wins. When I was coming back to work, I adjusted my schedule to be part time. So that meant that during some normal business hours, I was watching my baby before I dropped them off with their abuelita, before I started my day. And when I was coming back, a really important meeting I was invited to that I would have been like the subject matter expert, but it was outside my work hours. So I was tempted, to be like, oh, just this one time. But I had to step back and say to myself, I don't want to set a precedent for this. And especially coming back, I want people to know that my schedule is my schedule. So I said, hey, I don't have childcare at this time. These are my work hours. And it was rescheduled, no problem. People totally understand that stuff. And likewise, another leader at my company, they were sending emails a lot of times outside of work hours. And I think people don't necessarily understand with leadership, even though they in no way expected those to be replied to or expected other people to be working at that time. As a leader, people look to you. And, I kind of shared with them, like, it sets that precedent, right? So that person shared with me, oh, I set the like auto delay on my messages, so they're sending in work hours now. And I think just celebrate, like, once I declined that meeting, I told Daniel, and I was like, I'm proud of myself for that. And that leader at my company was celebrating that, say, I did this, and being able to share that with someone else, and even in those small things, say, I made a choice in my everyday to do something that really aligns with my core values of who I am as a person and my big picture. And that is worth celebrating.
Me personally, I don't really feel like I've kind of like been in that situation before because
It
like
doesn't fail.
I never
Yeah.
fail.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, but well, at
We
least
all
I haven't been in that
aspire to be
situation.
Hats
Daniel.
off.
I
Yeah.
haven't been in that situation in a long time because,
Good.
like I said, like I've been stringent about I work 9 to 5, and I'm thankful that in my career they really respect work life balance. Like I tell them, hey, like it's important for me to leave after 5, and they're like, we totally understand that, and that's something I give and thanks to like my leadership for, like and they respect that and really give me the opportunity. But I suppose if I was in a situation where perhaps I did work after hours late or stuff like that, I think I would like kind of like think about like why did I let that happen to me? Like why was I susceptible, or why did I run into the situation where I wanted to work late or work after 5? What was it, because we had this deadline, or was this a one-off, or is this going to happen again? So I think is really start important to like self-reflect and really start asking questions of why it even happened to begin with.
Yeah.
I think that'll be step 1 for me.
That's a good point. So, a question that we like to ask at the end of every one of our podcasts is, what does it mean to intentionally thrive in your life?
My family, like I
Mm.
think for me, I mean, it might be kind of a cop-out answer, but it really is. Like family
We'll
means so
accept
much
it.
to me. And like that like thrives me, and like when I moved from Puerto Rico to Florida, like it was so crushing for me. Like it was funny because like in the back of my mind I was like, oh, how exciting, I get to move to the United States, and be an American. But then when I actually moved, I was like, oh man, I miss my whole family. Like no one's here, like I don't have anyone. And especially with my siblings, like they all live in the West Coast now, or sorry, not all of them. Two of my oldest siblings live in the West Coast, and my other sister lives, the West Coast of Florida now. So, like, it was tough for like my family just to be apart, and really like I was just telling Cherise today like how I'm just really thankful, like how God just really has directed my life in like just an amazing way. He's really transformed me, and he's given me like I don't want to say new family, but it is a new family because like we have a little kid now, and like
Yeah.
this is the beginning of like this is the beginning of that new family, and I'm just like I'm here for it. Like it's awesome, and like I guess a part of me of like what was kind of lost when I moved here is like has been getting back with like me meeting Cherise and God blessing us with our son. It's just been like I'm pumped. That's what thrives me.
Aw.
My family.
Aw, that's so sweet. I think for me, intentionally thriving is about designing your life around your values. For me, it's starting with my faith and making sure that the things I'm doing align with that. So, serving more than, seeking to be served, and, loving our family, like you were saying, and loving others, and just focusing on like the beautiful world, being out in nature, and also like finding joy in work too. Like it's so rewarding to, work on a meaningful project and to do something that really helps someone, and being able to really enjoy that sense of productivity. I feel like I thrive on that as well. Um, but yeah, it's just about having that, that control over your life to say, these are the things I want, and I'm going to work as much as I can to make sure that, the decisions I make align with those values.